on SLN, and then we will talk about sustainable mining and environmental management at SLN mostly. So the Eramet group. The Eramet is it's a French company, and we are working in mining and metallurgy. We are actually one of the only French companies still running mines. There are just 3 or 4 other companies doing that. Eramet, as you can see, is not a really big company. We are, I would say, medium-sized. But in our business, we usually have leading positions. We are well positioned on the products we are selling. As well, there's something about safety. Safety has always been very important for the group, and in the last few years, it has really taken another dimension with the new management, and we have seen some very good improvement in the results. But there's still a long way to go before we can reach the top companies in terms of safety. Okay, here we are. So Eramet is composed of 2 divisions, and those divisions, they have 5 business units. The bigger division is a mining and metals division. And as well, you can see that, well, that's all the numbers as for 2019. You can see that in 2019, we lost a lot of money, and I think for 2020, it's going to be more or less the same. It's mostly due to our business units. So the nickel mining in New Caledonia has a lot of difficulties, as well as Aubert et Duval, a French, mostly French-based alloy company. On the shareholding side, it's a very stable shareholding we have. With the government, which owns about 26%, and you have as well a family, the Duval family, which owns about 37%, and the rest, about 1/3, is on the stock exchange. So there's not been many changes on that, giving a very good stability. It's a chance for us. Eramet is an international company. We have operations on each and every continent. So obviously we have quite a few operations in France. It's mostly plants. As well, we have plants in Norway and the United States. Our mines are located well in New Caledonia, but as well in Gabon, where we have a big manganese mine. We have started a few years back mineral sands in Senegal, and we have now a project in Indonesia, which had just started. And as well, we have a project which has been mothballed for now in Argentina for lithium. So we can see we are quite well spread across the world. So let's look a bit further into our activities. So our mining activities with those 3 divisions, it's very well connected to the steel industry because we're providing manganese, which is used for the reduction of steel. We're providing nickel for stainless steel, indeed, and as well we have mineral sands. But it's mostly for pigments and chemicals, a bit less for steel. Our high performance division, it's mostly doing forged products and high-speed steels. As you will show you later, our customers is mostly the aerospace and industry and defense industry. So regarding the mining, well, as I said before, we are not really a big company, but we are well positioned on our markets. You can see that our mine in Gabon is very high grade and is one of the best mines in the world. As well with our plants, we are very well positioned for the production of manganese alloys, ferro and silico manganese. Sorry. For nickel, SLN in New Caledonia is a bigger producer of ferronickel, and as well we've got good positions on the mineral sands. As you can see, on the mining side, we are not just producing ore, we are also refining it to a semi-product. So our manganese operation, here you can see our mineral processing plant in Gabon. It's a very, very big mine. It still has a lot of lifespan, and it's been running for at least 60 years now. As I said, it's one of the highest grade mine in the world, and it's producing ore which is sold all around the world, and as well which is sent to our different pyrometallurgical plants located in Norway and United States. We also built one in Gabon. Since it's in the middle of Gabon, transport is by train, and we are operating the train as well. As you may know, manganese is mostly used for the steel industry as a reductant, but there is also some sales for battery. Manganese is used in batteries, and as well for chemicals and agriculture. In 2019, we produced 5 million tons of ore, and last year we increased that to 6 million tons, which is this what I'm explaining on this slide. We are exploiting this Bangombe plateau, and now we are opening the Okuma plateau now in the next few months. This has allowed us to increase our production, and we are hoping to reach about 7 million tons for 2021. This is also due because we have invested in a dry screening plant, which is running in parallel with a wet screening plant you can see here. This involves some challenges, and as well, yes, we have to increase the capacity of our railway to bring the ore to the harbor. Our nickel division, nickel business unit, sorry, three main projects. So SLN in New Caledonia, which I will talk about much more in detail later. We also have a small plant which used to process the nickel matte which was produced in New Caledonia, but this has stopped, and now it's producing still high purity nickel, but from sulfide ore coming from Northern Europe. We have started the Wellabel project last year, and it's been running quite well. And I'm sure, as you know, all nickel is used for mainly stainless steel production, but it will take a lot of it's moving as well towards nickel batteries cells, and but since we are producing ferronickel, this market is not really open for us, so we will be looking at other options to try to reach that market. Let's focus on our new operation. So it's a joint venture with a Chinese company called Tsingshan. Tsingshan has been building the plant, and it's now operating. Well, the Chinese are working really fast and well because they managed to do it ahead of schedule and I think under budget, which tells us a lot about their capacities. On our side, we are operating the mine, and the mine is in production right now. And we are producing, I think it's about 10 million tons per year ore. And as you can see, this Weda project is one of the best still untapped nickel mine, because we've got 9.4 million tons of nickel in place on the island. So Weda nickel, it's located in Indonesia, in a small island called Halmahera, which is just close to Irian Jaya. Okay. All right, mineral sands. So here, this is our this is a new business. We've been it's been in our company, I think, since 2014. Yes, 2014. We went into a joint venture, and then we acquired the whole mine. So we are producing mineral sands. It's in dunes along the Senegal coastline. We have some very good resources there. The principle it's that you use a dredge, which is in front here. The dredge takes about 1,000 dry tons per hour, which is sent to a wet plant on a skid in the middle of a pool. And the pool is actually moving as a dredge is moving forward. So you can go across all the sand dunes. So that wet plant is mostly spirals. Then you send the concentrate into a dry plant that uses magnetic separation and electrostatic separation to produce zircon and titanium. So as you know, well, zircon is mostly used in ceramics, and titanium is used as well for paint mostly. It's the white paint is mostly made of titanium oxide, and as well in the industry with titanium metal. All right. Next, we have our high performance alloy division with its two business units. It's a very specialized division. We are producing very special products for high-end and high performance industry. So we have two companies, Aubert et Duval, and they are mostly working for aerospace and energy and defense, and Era Steel, which is mostly producing high-speed steels, which is for tools and cutting tools, things like that. Our location is mostly in Europe. As you can see here, this is what we are producing, and I've heard that Greece has bought some Rafale from French Rafale jet fighter planes from the French company Dassault, but you can be sure that there will be parts of Aubert et Duval in this plane, either in the engines and as well some parts of the structure of the plane. So we are working for, as I said before, aerospace, defense, nuclear, and nuclear industry, very specialized production. Last but not least, we also have a research center. This is actually where I am working. It's close to Paris, and we have a very strong expertise in different fields. First with characterizations using different microprobes and what as well called QEM-scan, which allows to see the mineralogy and the chemistry of particles. We have three different fields of expertise as well: mineral processing, hydrometallurgy, and pyrometallurgy. And we can perform tests from just at lab level to a full-scale pilot. There is a big engineering department as well, which provides engineering and project management for the group. Okay, and so we've been working on a very large project for the group. And for instance, the last one was to work on to the lithium project we are trying to build in Argentina. We have moved as well to what we call an open innovation approach, and we want to increase our partnerships through European projects, universities, and startup companies. You see, we are working a lot with EIT raw materials. And we developed as well some European project like the SolSAR project to improve mineral exploration by combining drilling and analytical equipment. I wanted as well to talk to you about our vision because there's been a lot of changes in the last few years for Eramet. And we are trying to improve the way we work. So we want to be faster, we want to be more agile and efficient to face the competition. And this derives from all these challenging goals that we have displayed on this slide. So regarding digital transformation, we are doing a strong transformation there, and I've been very part of it. We've put drones in New Caledonia and as well in Gabon. We've completely refurbished our way we do the geology and planning because we had a major strategy change, which as a consequence, we had to redo everything. So we had to change our ways of doing to be faster and more efficient. But I will talk in more detail about that later and when we talk about SNN. As well, we want to understand better our operations, and this is why we have put some fleet managing systems on all our mines, or at least we improved them to have a better KPI. And now we are looking at putting some IROC on our main operations. IROC for those, it means integrated remote operating centers. So you have the whole system to run the mine in one place. Okay. Well, we all know that being able to mine anywhere in the world has become sometimes difficult, and each mining company needs to have his right to operate, and therefore Eramet is the same, and therefore we have a very strong commitment towards social responsibility environment. But I will talk about it later as well. When we talk about SNN, you will see what we actually did there. And this is not just words, because we've been in the top 100 by the Wall Street Journal in terms of corporate and social responsibility. And here you can see a few numbers, and we are trying to improve every year on that. Okay, so now let's look at let's go a bit more into mining, and let's look at what's happening in New Caledonia and the nickel. First, a bit of geology background. So it happened 37 million years ago. There was what we call an abduction phenomenon, which brought some peridotites on top of the crust, so from the upper mantle. And with this peridotites, they got weathered and metamorphism. There's been some metamorphism, and then they've been weathered, and they were transformed into laterites. So we have two types of laterites. We have the limonite, which is usually the upper part of the profile. It's got more iron and usually it's got a bit less nickel, and then and more fine grain. And then you've got the saprolites, which are a bit deeper. They still have some magnesium, and they are usually higher in grade. So all these laterites, they cover about 1/3 of the whole of New Caledonia, and thanks to that, well, New Caledonia has a chance to have between 10 to 15% of all the world reserves. Therefore, New Caledonia has become one of the major producers of nickel. So we've got two types of production. First, we've got the production of refined nickel with three big players. So we have SLN, who's producing ferronickel. We have KNS, which is fairly new and also is producing nickel and ferronickel, sorry. And then we have Goro, which is still a Valley plant, which is producing nickel salt. I think it's nickel sulfates. These last two companies have been spending billions of euros on their plants. I think from both of them, it's close to $8 billion, sorry, and with high overcost. So KNS is owned by Glencore and is still running. Goro is owned by Vale and is being sold. And for now, there's been a bit of turmoil over there on which company is going to take over Vale. And it might happen that the plant is actually going to close. Well, anyway, the second product which is sold is just raw ore, raw laterite. You have a lot of companies doing that. So mainly you have the SMSP, which is a big company, and they have their own Korean, it's a big local company, and they have their own Korean smelter, which is owned by them at 51%, and 49% is owned by the Korean counterparts. And then you have SLN as well, who is exporting quite a lot. And smaller companies, maybe there are 3 or 4, which are producing ore. The main place is China and Japan for sale. And as you can see on the map, unfortunately, New Caledonia is a bit far from the place. And so there is a strong competition with 2 other big players in the nickel industry, which are the Philippines and Indonesia. So Indonesia, they have much lower cost. Indonesia, they've got grades which are maybe a bit lower than New Caledonia, but very similar. And Philippines, usually the grade is lower, but they are closer to market. And as well, they have the advantage of having lower cost, because unfortunately, New Caledonia, the cost of energy is maybe the highest in the world, which is very bad for the production. All right, so now let's focus on SLN. So SLN is a completely integrated industrial organization. We have mines. So these mines, as you can see on the map, they are located a bit everywhere in New Caledonia. We have 5 mines that we are operating ourselves, 2 on the east coast and 3 on the west coast. And then we have some subsidiary mines which are subcontracted. Those 3 green dots. And then we have our power plant, which is in Numea, the main town, the main city in New Caledonia. So we produce ore. It's either sent or beneficiated and transported to a harbor, and then from the harbor it takes a ship the ship send it to the pyro plant here, or the ship is directly shipping it to the market. So as I said, in Japan or China. Okay. Our nickel mines, they are all open pit mines. I guess the main difference with usual open pits is that they are all located on hilltops with, and you will see some pictures. It's very narrow spaces from time to time. And also you have the chance usually to enjoy one of the most beautiful views on the Coral Lagoon, which is just usually a few miles away. We have in a tropical climate, which means we have a lot of water all year round. There's just one period of the year where there's less water, which is from October, November. And we also have a storm season with big cyclones from time to time. The trucks you are using are 100 to 50 ton trucks. The shovels, they are 120 tons or less in size. Okay, I'm going to explain to you how we do with the geology, with the mine geology. So we have two ways to do selective mining. We need to do selective mining, otherwise our pyro plant with its high cost of energy will not cope to bring cost at a correct level. So we either do grade control using drill holes, as many other places do, or we do what we call face sampling. We're gonna sample some faces, and then we're gonna report the grade. And depending on the grade results, we're gonna mine. What we're gonna mine is gonna be sent to the waste dump or stockpile. The problem is, as you can see, that the grade has been dropping severely in the last 140 years that we are operating. And the consequence is that we need to have better ways of working. So we introduce some mineral processing plant, and as well we introduce some geometallurgy to help us understand what would be the performance of the ore inside those plants. You can see as well how complicated our profile is. This is a representation, a mapping of the profile on this photo approximately. So you have the laterite on top, then the limonites on top, and then you have the saprolite there, and then you have the fresh rock. And as you can see, because of the faulting, it's very much all intermingled. We have what we call the egg box shapes because of the crisscrossed faults. So keeping track of the ore for the geologist is quite a difficult job. So here you have how we do our production. So you can see an overview of a mine, and you can see that it's been raining, and you can have a lot of water. We have some digging, free digging and blasting. In some areas we need blasting, but mostly we have a free dig. So we use the normal truck and shovel, and as well we have a very high ratio of overburden and waste, which means that one of the main job for the miner is actually to build waste dumps. And you can see that here, and one down there, which is complete. Because the ground is soft and sometimes wet, we need in many different parts to put extra rock layers, so we can have the trucks and the shovels running without any problem and not being bogged down or sinking. So this is one of the main characteristics of our mines in New Caledonia. It is that in some cases we have a beneficiation plant, and I think in nickel oxide nowhere else in the world it's been done. So this is here the Nepri mine, and so the ore is taken to a pre-processing plant next to the mine, and then it's crushed, and we remove as well the big rocks which don't have a nickel content. So it's crushed and put into a pulp and sent to the downstream plant in a pipe. Then the downstream plant will process further the ore. So we have had a big change in our policy. I will explain a bit more. This plant used to do some screening, and then depending on the size of the particles, they would be sent either they would be separated by gravity, and they would be sent either to spirals or a DMS plant. But now we stopped the DMS plant, and like this, we just do screening. And the finer grain particles are the ones which are the richest in nickel, and they are put into, sorry, I forgot the name, well, to remove the water, and sent directly to our plant in Donyambo. And the coarser particles, they have a bit higher grade, and they are not waste. They can be beneficial. They can be sold to our customers outside New Caledonia. So before we had final waste, and now we can beneficiate everything. The lower grade is exported, and the higher grade is sent to our plant in Donyambo. Oh, yes, filtering. Sorry, the filter cakes. This is how we transport the ore. So once it's outside the plant, oh, sorry, and I need to mention as well, when we don't have a plant, we usually do some kind of screenings. Either we use warblers and tumblers to do the screening on the other operations, or simple screens as well. All right, sorry, for transport, we transport the ore either by truck or using, in one mine, we use conveyor belts. And then when they arrive at the wharf, they are being stockpiled. And then you can either use a mechanized way to ship it, using stackers and reclaimer, or you take barges which are loaded into the wharf and then go to the ship to be unloaded. It's only happening on smaller operations. Then our last step is the export. So as I explained, the development of export with China mostly, and as well a bit in Japan, I made us the possibility to sell a lot of ore. We've moved from 4 million tons this year, last year a bit less, but this year is going to be 4 million tons. While at the same time we send about 3.5 million tons to our pyrometallurgical plant. So thanks to that, and the way we've changed our strategy, we are really trying to have a more sustainable strategy by having as much ore as possible being used, either as export or by our own plant. Our own plant, where you have a picture here, so it's got 3 different furnaces. It's got as well its own power plant, but unfortunately it's an old power plant using fuel, so it's not very efficient and it's high cost. There's been plans for years to try to change it, but there's always been difficulties in achieving that. Every year, our plant, depending on circumstances, can produce between 50 and more like 55 kilotons of ferronickel. That's a nickel content and not the overall ferronickel. All right. So it's nice to see how we mine, but we all know that we need to mine in a proper manner. And as I said, we have a strong commitment towards the environment. And I'm quite proud to say that probably we have the best standards in New Caledonia because our strong experience, because of very strong experience we have over the years. We have the ISO 14001 certification. And yes, this commitment is very well regarded because, well, SLN is the biggest company in New Caledonia. So indeed, biggest company means big expectations from stakeholders, and we need to show the example to others. So now I will talk to you about the water management. But first, let's have a look at how New Caledonia is inside. So it's got a very exceptional natural habitat. It's a small island, and it's been away from Australia for a few million years, which means that it's got many unique species of flora and fauna, which are really specific. They are endemic to the island. As I mentioned as well, you have a lot of rain, and you have a cyclone season, and it's all very beautiful. Unfortunately, the mining has done some damages to the environment. That's because when we went out of World War II, the production increasing from very artisanal mining of 200 kilotons per year in 1950 to 2 million tons 10 years later. And at the time, nobody really cared about the environment. There was no management at all, and the administration was just telling us, well, you can just dump your waste down the slope. And this is what you can see now, old mines, and with all the dumps on the slopes, and it's been stopped for more than 50 years now, and you can see that it's still the same. Nothing grows, so it's really, really bad. But fortunately, things have changed. So I will explain to you what we do now. Well, we did some a blue guide which explains and puts all the technology that SLN knows on the water management. And this blue guide explains you how to build, how the different types of hydraulic structure, what they are for, how you build them, and how you dimension them. So we have 3 main pillars when we deal with risk. First, you want to avoid it, then you want to manage it, and then when something wrong happens, you want to have a quick response to avoid the increase in the problem. So because of the climate and geography, water management is quite difficult. As I said, it rains a lot. all the mines are located on top of the mountain. So if things go wrong, it's just a whole mine that could go down the hill. Okay, just next slide. Okay, all right. So what you want to do first is you want to put all the working areas out of water, because working areas are a naked ground. If water goes on them, well, they will catch particles and bring those particles downhill, which you want to avoid. Plus, weak zones are prone to erosion, so you want to minimize that erosion. And since you have a lot of water, you also want to make sure it is properly channeled, so you can control what is released into the environment, for which you need to work on at least the 3 last steps we've seen, which are organize the water flows, minimize the solid content, and build a management plan for the water. So you will organize a path for your water, and you will put what's needed on the watershed or catchment area to make sure that the water that is finally released in the environment is clear. So here you have what you have inside the blue guide, all the different fact sheets that helps explain to you how you can build things and how you can design things. It's going to give you a full description, all the dimensioning for principles, how you build them, and what are their limitations. But the water management just doesn't stop on the mine itself. It's also with infrastructures. So we are trying to recycle the water as much as possible. Actually, the administration is asking us to do that, and we have limitations on how much water we can take from rivers nearby. And we've put as well the same emphasis on releasing a clean water into the environment. At least we have the chance with the nickel oxide is that it's not toxic, okay? You don't have, like with sulfides, arsenic or heavy metals, things like that. It's just solid particles. Obviously, it's annoying to have them within the environment, but at least it's not toxic. And here are the results that we have. As you can see, that's one. It was during one of my trips to one of the mines. The water coming out is perfectly clear. We've also built some large workings to rehabilitate all the workings, and it takes a long time, because as you can see, its access is quite difficult. You also need some large rocks. And in the laterite environment, large rocks is hard to come by. So they almost have the price of gold. So you also have to be very careful on how you manage everything. In terms of numbers, you see we have, let's say, about 8 different mines, and these 8 mines have got more than almost 2,500 ponds. So it's really a major endeavor to make sure that the water that is released in the environment is clean. Okay. All right. Okay, so now let's talk a bit more about how we manage our waste dumps. So as I said, we have a very high ratio of waste to ore ratio, which means that we produce a lot of waste, and therefore we need to build some waste dump all the time to keep our production. So when you build a waste dump, you have three main objectives. First, you want to make sure it's safe. Then you want to make sure that the local population will not have a problem with it. Otherwise, they will stop you from using it. And as well, you need to comply to the current regulations, which mostly is to have the first 2 points cleared. Current regulations say that you need to minimize the footprint as much as possible, which means that nowadays most of the waste dumps are are built in old open pits and which are being backfilled, which means that when you do that, you actually need to make sure you removed all the ore, because when a waste dump is on top of it, you won't go back there. So for your project, you will do usual studies, water management, a full environmental assessment, and which includes an inventory of the fauna and flora. And sometimes if you have very sensitive areas, you won't be able to go ahead and you will have to find another solution for your waste dump. Either you make it smaller or you move it a bit, or you just don't do it at all. We work on the rehabilitation part, as you will see. We're trying to get better visual aspects. So here you see it's just, I think it's quite an old dump, and nothing has been done to revegetize it. But usually we are trying to get as close as possible to the initial state. We usually use topsoil, and we are trying to revegetize the areas. Okay, so here's how we do. So you saw that in the old time we would just dump the waste down the slopes, but since the 1970s there's been some work done by SLN, and we've been working with Paris and Nancy School of Mines to design the better way of storing our waste. So what you will do is, what is of the utmost important is to keep the waste dump out of water. So you will put a drainage outside the catchment area of the waste dump, and as well in the waste dump itself with some rocks. You will have a rocky layer as well that will protect the waste dump, and the slope has been calculated so it stays stable. It will depend on how the height of the waste dump. The good thing is that by putting the laterite in thin strips, well, it's going to compact by itself, and when the laterite is nicely compacted, then you have a very good cohesion, which helps the stability of the whole waste dump. This is how it looks. You have, well, I would say two types of waste dumps. You have smaller waste dumps, which have a lower height and medium capacity. You have obviously some technical works, but it's not very complicated. And then you have the larger ones, which have which are very high, and then you will do a very big file to make sure and to justify it and make sure it's safe. Here you have different pictures on waste dumps, and this one is actually an old pit which is being backfilled. All right, the internal structure. Since you put laterite and mainly limonites, you usually have rock tracks for the truck. the truck is going to dump his ore, and then the ore is going to be pushed by a dozer at in between. So you dump here and you push here. The tracks is going to help as well to drain the water. So it's quite interesting. And as well here you have a drain. So this one has been covered with geotextile to avoid fine particles to clog the rocks, which are the big rocks which are inside the drain. Okay, and this is how it looks on the outside. So as I said, usually you're going to put some topsoil back to help revegetarization. So topsoil usually it's got a lifespan of 6 months, because after that the seeds and stuff which are inside is going to die. So it means that usually you need to have kind of a rolling system of your topsoil. You cannot just dig remove your topsoil, put your dump, and then put back the topsoil. No, the topsoil has to come from another place, because you won't have the span life of the waste dump is more than 6 months. And as well, you have water management systems, just like we've seen before. Okay, let's focus now on how we revegetize. So as I said, New Caledonia has got very specific plants. On top of that, the mining soils are very poor. So it means that the plants, they are very specific to these soils, and they are also growing very slowly. So for rehabilitation, it makes things very complicated. And I can tell you from having visiting many different mines that yes, in New Caledonia, things are growing very, very slowly in the mining areas compared to other places. So the idea is to create good conditions for long-term plants to grow. So you're going to try to use pioneer plants which will colonize the soil, and then you will bring other plants that's going to grow. So some work has been done to select the best plants for that, and you see there are 40 different species have been selected, and some of them are used for using hydro seeding. All right, so this is how it's done. First you collect some seeds, and then you will put them into nurseries to grow some plants. Well, the good thing is since those plants, they are used to very poor soils, you don't really need anything. It's just grow by themselves. They don't need any fertilizer. Then you will plant your seeds, and here's the results you have. You can see it after a while. You have some good results. You can do hydraulic seeding. What's the point with hydraulic seeding is that usually you put plants that's gonna go onto right terrains, and then they will grow, they will die quickly, and that leaves a vegetal cover where you can put some more species. So in practice, this is what you have. So you have some mining fans which I hope okay. Apparently I got my sound cut. All right, so yes, in practice, you have a mining fan. Well, SLN is doing its own rehabilitation, but you also have a mining fund which helps rehabilitate the old mines. SLN has the commitment to rehabilitate more surface than actually is being cleared. I think the ratio we are trying to keep is about 1.5. And in 2019, we rehabilitate about 19 hectares. It's not much, but that's as well because we are trying not to go into virgin areas. We are trying to mostly do our waste dumps in all mines. There's a full team of people working with on this topic, and they are usually managing the different projects which are subcontracted to local companies, and that gives them work, which is a very good thing. It's usually long-term. It's usually long-term contract, so it helps local businesses to grow. We are also changing our. We also have a sustainable mining policy through reclaiming our waste dumps. I think it's quite a new change in our way of seeing things. We have two big projects. One, the older one, is what we call the SLAND. It's called. It's from the slag. You know, the power plant has produced a lot of slag over the years, and this slag can be used in construction. So it's quite funny because you see those green rocks just about everywhere in Nouméa as soon as there are some small construction works. But we are also trying to export the product, and it's been certified to use as a replacement for sand, which is a good thing because we are going to be missing sand in soon, the way things are going. So far, we have mixed successes, but we still managed to sell 2 ships for about 40,000 tons. The other project, it's to reclaim a waste dump in Nepri. I actually was a project manager on that, and we used the XRT sorting machine. The XRT sends X waves through each rock, and which roughly is going to tell you its density, and so based on that, we're going to know whether the rock which has a high density is usually low in nickel, and vice versa. So we can select the product, a new product, and this product is then exported to China or Japan. We also have corporate and social responsibility actions. Again, with the environment, we have compensation measures, which means that when we are clearing some areas, we are trying as well to do some protected areas, and so far it's about 850 hectares. We also stop projects in very sensitive areas regarding education, we are associated with 2 parts. First, we have what we call dust mine. It's a university degree, and our technical managers are giving courses there. And then you have the CFTMC. It is where it's a teaching school for mining equipment. So people there learn to drive shovels and trucks, and they're actually subcontractors to one of our mines. We also have more social actions. We have community offices where people can talk to people of SLN about what they think about problems they may have or about the initiatives they want to start. And also we have funding community projects like third-party conventions, which is between usually SLN, the local community, and the government of New Caledonia for some projects, like you can see here for a music school. It is very important for SLN to keep its right to operate, because unfortunately its presence has often been contested, and it is very, very important to have a strong action towards our communications with stakeholders. All right, and this is the last slide coming. Here we go for the conclusion. So to conclude, what we can say is that SLN is really a leader on the environmental preservation in New Caledonia. We have an excellent experience, and I hope you see that we also have good results. Eramet is going through a big strategic change following the drop in prices, Eramet and SLN, following the drop in prices of nickel and the increase of NPI production in China. Now we are trying to export more ore, and we also keep our ferronickel production. So that's bring a new window of opportunity for us. Eramet as a whole has a move towards a reduction of its CO2 emissions. And as well, we have a clear vision of becoming a provider for the energy transition metals. And I think with nickel and lithium, we are well placed on that. We also have cobalt and manganese to help on that. All right, thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. And now I will answer any questions you may have.